Welcome back. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga says safety in schools remains a major concern for her department and the government generally. Motshekga says security measures need to be stepped up. She also opens up about things that she believes are beyond control but are affecting her department's performances across the provinces.
It's a major concern for us. It's for me, one of the most painful experiences that you go through as a minister when you get a report to say Lena has killed Elena. You just can't even look up at the family. It's just one of the most painful experiences that we have. And with our unions, because unions also are quite concerned about the safety of their members, are constantly seized about what next. How, because we have your safety plan, what more do we do to make sure that we have a safe environment, we're able to socialize our kids much more peacefully, we're able to work with communities to protect schools, to make sure that parents are on board. And I can tell you, I never sit in meetings with teachers and then we don't talk about school safety and violence in schools and what more needs to be done from what we've put in place. What can be done in a school environment where people are advising to say must have securities with guns. I mean, schools have to be gun-free areas, but gun-free areas in an environment where even learners bring guns to school. So to say there must be detectors. So, yeah, it's something I can tell you we are permanently assisted within every meeting that we have. It's even in our CEM calendar meetings. There's always a standing item around school safety.
We can't talk about all these priorities, but I'm going to ask you to talk about one more, and that is your recognition of the fact that, the failure rate is and dropout rate are quite high. Now, and I'm also raising this because your party, the ANC, has raised the possibility of perhaps in recognition of the fact that many pupils leave school before matric, and that maybe somewhere before matric there should be some kind of a certificate which recognizes that reality.
No, I think you're phrasing the question the other way around. Recently I hosted a DEA conference. We're one of the few countries that regard your FET as basic education. In most countries, for instance, in Africa, after grade 10, 11, so young people are encouraged either to go to the academic stream, go and do your history to prepare to go to university, go to a vocational stream, if you really are not an academically oriented person, or go to a technical skill. So what has been a problem, which I alluded to earlier in our conversation, is that for a long time we've been only focusing on the academic stream. And when young people begin to recognize and even become aware of themselves, either they get bored of school, but again, because there are challenges in your basic education up to your 15, where, as I said, there's no proper remediation, people bring deficits, they find it difficult to cope with high-level academic curriculum. And that's why our response is the 3 curriculum stream to make sure that young people who are not necessarily academically gifted, whether you remediate, whether you're slow learners or kids who really have intellectual problems, they can find a stream which enables them to proceed. So they're not forced to go to the academic stream because they have no option now. Even if you're not coping academically, you find yourself forced to go to and do matric. So we're working hard with Province to make sure that there is a vocational stream for those kids. It's worldwide, that's what happens. Then there's a technical stream. If you look at your successful economies of Germany or France, Germany is 60% technical. So very few of their kids will go to the academic stream. We expect all of them, 100%, to go to the academic stream after matric. And that's what we're trying to remediate through the 3-stream curriculum, to say, let's ensure that our learners have got adequate exit points. But when you exit, you need to recognize. so that when the FET college takes it, they must know that they have your basic education, and that's where the certification story comes in, so that there is a recognition of basic education qualification, so that when you go to FET, there's an exit certificate. When you go to technical college, there's an exit certificate. So the exit certificate, it's supposed to prepare for the pathing from your basic education system. So it's not because of the dropout per se. The dropout is caused by something else. It's deficits, it's poor, as I say, lack of adequate streaming, and therefore we just think that there is a need to improve at that level. But then you need to recognize, to have a certificate that recognizes that children have finished their basic education.
Now, Blessed Minister, we can't sit and pretend that the reason we're where we are is because the national department doesn't work. That isn't necessarily true. The provinces have powers, they have mandates, they have responsibilities. Just looking at the whole system, which among our provinces are sort of presenting the system with very, shall we say, peculiar problems that make it difficult, if not impossible, to solve some of basic education's problems. And this is not about naming and shaming.
I can name
it's
them.
trying to get the South Africans to understand where the problems of basic education are.
Now, fortunately, we talk with colleagues, and we're very lucky that provinces, when they deploy, I suppose they get their best out. And I'm sure, so it's not even shaming provinces, because I raised on an ongoing basis with colleagues. Let's take Eastern Cape, for instance. We went to OR Tambo last week. In profiling that area, the social problems of that area make it sometimes difficult to function in any other way. When we profiled, we find that in teenage pregnancy, almost 2,000 learners were pregnant. Amongst those, almost 50 were between 12 and 14. So that's statutory rape, and that's where we have Utwala as a practice there. So you have outside gender issues that interfere with the schooling system. So there are social factors which also pull the system down because of things happening outside. So there's lots of gender violence, there's lots of violence in that area. For some reason, there's a culture that they send kids to school late, and that's why we're even monitoring. If you find that there are 27, so I mean, a child at 27, you ask them to go and stand at assembly and be doing things that you want 12-year-olds to do, it's just out of place for them. So there are circumstances, that environment that creates problem. You have human settlements also, which make it difficult to really get the best out of the system, where in rural areas, people are scattered. It's peaceful. If you go there, it's beautiful. And then it's very expensive to run a system like that. But it's also difficult to run a system where you don't have enough quality time with learners. You look at Gauteng, part of the advantages of Gauteng in particular, it's densely populated. So you're able to have morning classes, you're able to have sports, you're able to have afternoon classes, but we're still able to have numbers that enable you to run a proper school. So if you go to Waterberg, you have 75 learners in a farm. It's almost difficult to run it, because it means we have 2 grade 1s, you have 5 grade 3s, then you have to multi-grade. In terms of resources, you can only give them 3 teachers. What do 3 teachers do for a grade 1 and a grade 12? It fails before it starts, right? So there are also those issues that we have to address outside the system. But then you also have, in your urban areas, there's lots of pressure that also provinces like Gauteng do. Drugs, smuggling, crime, violence, absent parents. Parents are very busy. They run to work, they come back late. There's not adequate support for supervision and management of children. So there are those problems, and we have to own up that there are things that also myself just feel that it can be done better, it can be done. We can have more accountability. I was very excited recently that we finally, since I was minister, have been struggling to get the accountability policy going through. So we have to put it to test to see if we can really hold people accountable. So we didn't have adequate instruments. Otherwise, it was difficult to legally hold people to account because we had no agreed instrument. Because according to our laws, we have to go to the chamber and they have to approve. And it really took me the entire term as a minister. Plus, after 10 years, it's only now that on the 11th day, I'm getting the tool approved. And it's some of those constraints also that are legal. It's constraints that ourselves, that things that we can, and that's why we're constantly in the struggle to really get things to work better, to do things differently, to do things better, to be more efficient. And you can see in other schools where principals are checked that it can be done. You can do things better. You can really improve our performance. But they are also hard to work in areas. As I say, it's just a very hard to work in area. But your Western Cape, where there's lots of gang violence, sometimes you go to the township 11 o'clock, you find 11-year-olds with parents who are scared to take their kids to school because of if it has erupted, so which means parents have to keep kids at school. And there's nothing you can do. For the safety of kids, you have to wait, and then when you think it has simmered down, then it erupts. So there are also those external factors. But as I say, combination. I'm taking responsibility. There are things that we could do better as government, as a department, but there are also constraints which make it difficult, but not impossible, because some principals, some committees do the best under very difficult circumstances. We've produced a report of schools that work. And we've taken schools in the most difficult areas, in rural areas, to say what is it that they do differently, which enables them to work under very difficult conditions. And trying to use those with other schools to say it can be done. Other people in the same situation that you find yourself in have been able to do better and differently.